So I consulted the Council of Superintelligence recently to find out what truly defines a Souls-like video game, since, as we all know, they could never err or provide faulty information, so I figured they may be able to help me in my purpose of making this video. And that is to prove to the masses that Castle Crashers is truly a Souls-like game, hence why I have coined it Baby Dark Souls. Now, hear me out on this. Notice the noun I have placed in front of Dark Souls, that being baby. I am not here to convince you that Castle Crashers was the Elden Ring of our time way back in 2008, but perhaps we can instead acknowledge it as a game within the orbit of what it means to be Souls-like. With that being said, let's define what a Souls-like game really is. Between the Council of Grok, ChatGPT, and Gemini, they pretty much all said the same thing with maybe a variation here or there. But the essential traits of a Souls-like game are as follows: high difficulty, a risk-reward element, interconnected world design with environmental storytelling, checkpoint progression, character progression and builds, skill-based or weighty combat, and challenging boss fights. Now this isn't a definitive list, and there were other smaller points given for what a Souls-like game is from the AI overlords, and I'm sure others could provide input on this as well. But for now, this will be our model by which we judge Castle Crashers as truly Souls-like or not. So do all of these common attributes of a Souls game actually apply here? Well, let's see. Item number 2 on our list doesn't really fit, as the closest risk-reward element within Castle Crashers I can think of is when you find an X on the ground with treasure that you can dig up while there is some combat happening at the same time. The thing to keep in mind is that you don't lose your inventory or accumulated experience if you were to die. Item 4 also does not really apply here, as when you die in Castle Crashers, you typically just end up at the start of the level or an area closer to a major boss battle. The checkpoint system in a Souls-like game typically entails a bonfire-type setup where you save at individual areas or points throughout the journey, so not really the same thing. Lastly, item 6 is a tough one, as this could apply depending on how you define it. If you define skill-based combat as blocking, dodging, or perhaps having to learn enemy patterns in the context of a boss fight, then maybe it fits. However, the other side of Souls-like combat is often its weightiness and need to parry and manage your timing with things like animation priority, where your decisions in combat can be life or death. With the latter half of Souls-like combat being more definitive of what it truly is to me, I have to say that item 6 doesn't apply. This leaves us with 4 other items on the list that, in my opinion, strongly apply to Castle Crashers and help solidify its place as Baby Dark Souls. So let us begin. Starting with item number 1, we have high difficulty. Now when you think of Castle Crashers, you may not think of it as being a difficult game, and you would be somewhat correct about that if we were just talking about the standard campaign playthrough. But where this changes is with Insane Mode. Insane Mode is unlocked after you beat the campaign with any given character and takes the difficulty level up quite a few notches, as one would expect from a mode that has Insane in its name. For those of you who aren't familiar with Insane Mode or were too afraid to try it, it is essentially the same as before, with the campaign being completely identical, except now the enemies have more health and deal more damage. Per the Castle Crashers fandom wiki, enemy health and damage dealt is multiplied by 10, so the little barbarian you forgot about after beating the game on normal mode is now essentially a mini-boss. And if those buffs weren't bad enough, many of the bosses get their own unique buffs on Insane Mode. Take for example the following. The barbarian boss's speed increases after each of his attacks. Pipistrello's tongue attack deals 999 damage, killing the majority of players in one hit. The undead Cyclops gets a very fast speed boost while summoning the undead Groom. And the Necromancer's summoned enemies become extremely challenging. Playing solo can really feel tedious and quite challenging on this mode if you aren't leveled high, but it is manageable with a group of friends. Tying this back to our premise of being Souls-like, I'd say this makes the cut, or at least while on Insane Mode. Moving on to item number 3, we have interconnected world design and environmental storytelling. For anyone who has played Castle Crashers, this is sort of a no-brainer. As you progress, the levels flow with the story, and the environment changes in real time. We even get a neat map to show us how it all connects and helps build the overall picture of the interconnected world for us. A great example of this is the first few levels of the game, where we begin in the castle and progress out towards the battlefields to face the barbarians. As you progress through the hordes, you eventually land at the boss fight with the barbarian boss, and then proceed into the woods as we chase after the stolen princesses. This type of interconnected environment persists throughout the entire game. We also have quite a bit of environmental storytelling as we traverse the world of Castle Crashers. Even though the story is pretty simple and like a Lego game we don't have any real dialogue, we do see throughout the levels various forms of environmental storytelling. A good example of this is when going through the volcanic area. When traversing through the level, you will stumble upon what almost seems like statues, but upon closer look, they're actually villagers covered in ash from the volcanic eruption. The same thing applies to their former villages. They also have tasty treats when you desecrate their remains. Another great example is when you're traveling through the woods in the earlier part of the game and bear witness to various animals sharding themselves as an ominous sound of a stomping beast can be heard just down the path. This serves as a great and hilarious visual cue to the impending danger we are facing ahead. So, all in all, I'd say item number 3 does apply as Soulslike here. Moving on to item number 5, we have character progression and builds. Castle Crashers has a great customization feature in which you gain experience points as you level up. They can be contributed to 4 main stats. These stats include strength, magic, defense, and agility. This allows the player to curtail their run to their specific desires, such as if you wanted to max out magic early on and take more of a mage approach, or be a tank by maxing out defense. Or of course you could do what I do and sprinkle a little points across the whole board for a more balanced approach. But if you want to outrun your buddies and secure loot before they do, consider maxing out agility. Alongside this aspect of customized builds, you can also choose from a plethora of weapons as you unlock them throughout the game. Most of the weapons will have some sort of effect on your stats or may even have its own special ability, like catching enemies on fire or poisoning them. Another cool feature in the game is that each character you play has their own unique magic ability. We can see this right off the bat with the various starter knights. Blue Knight has Ice-type magic, Red Knight has Lightning, Green Knight has Poisonous Gas, and Orange Knight has Fire. So all this to say, I think we can confidently affirm item number 5 fits the bill for Castle Crashers being Souls-like. Last but not least, we have item number 7, and that is challenging boss fights. Harkening back to item number 1, Insane Mode definitely fits better here in the context of truly challenging boss fights. But that is not to say the base difficulty doesn't present some big contenders. What makes Castle Crashers boss fights interesting is the gradual progression of difficulty and intensity that occurs within each fight itself. As you knock down the overall health of any given boss, you will notice they tend to become faster, hit harder, and increase the rate of attacks until the bitter end. Though the boss fights don't tend to last long, it is worth picking up on their attack patterns to dodge more complex attacks and find your opening to strike. One particular boss battle I always dread is with the Necromancer. While I can appreciate it from a design perspective, this fight is stuff of nightmares. You enter the arena to find what seems to be an endless amount of dead bodies strung across the entire floor. What really adds to the challenge for this fight is that we don't actually directly fight the Necromancer majority of the time, but rather are forced to fight the resurrected enemies of old that we have faced throughout the entire game. It can be overwhelmingly fast, and if you are playing solo, you better be able to move quick and never stop moving, because if you do, it very easily could spell disaster. The rate of speed, the rate of spawn, and the enemy types spawned gets more hectic as the battle progresses. But oh boy, is it satisfying when he's dead. So I'd say with ease that we can affirm item number 7 on this list as being applicable. Summing all this up, we have a list of 7 items that roughly define the attributes of a Souls-like game. As we've reviewed, 3 do not really apply to Castle Crashers, but 4 do. So, at least when using this list as the model, we have a majority lead that affirms Castle Crashers' place as a Souls-like game. Well, at least a baby version, perhaps. And like I said earlier, I am not here to convince you that Castle Crashers is Souls-like in the fullest expression, but rather can confidently be affirmed as baby Dark Souls. And if you disagree with me, well, you're just bad at Souls games. But in all seriousness, if you made it this far, let me know what you think in the comments, and perhaps what makes a game Souls-like to you. And as always, thanks for watching, guys. I will catch you in the next one, and until next time, peace.